Hey YouTube, it's Brother Mark here. I hope you're well and good. The video that I'm recording today, it's kind of built off of a lot of what we're seeing in the news, online, various videos. And the title of this video is going to be called "The Decline of Christianity Has Led to the Rise of." And really what's rising, and we've been seeing this, I think, particularly in the last few decades, but it's been going on for a while, of course. So we see a rise of atheism, and particularly recently, Islam. And, that's becoming more and more prevalent, and there's essentially nothing to counter it. Certainly not in the West or anywhere, frankly. And because there's no realistic challenge to this religious organization, it's becoming strong for a number of reasons. And it's not just atheism. I mean, the vast majority of the UK is atheist, and I suspect that's the case in Australia, the US, etc. But we see this rise, particularly again in the last couple of decades, I'd say, certainly in the last decade, of this whole woke thing, right? People who are just they'd be described as snowflakes, right? Just weak, effeminate men, overly strong women. There's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of depression, a lot of apathy and exhaustion. And the West particularly is incredibly vulnerable. And when you look at the Catholic religious system, again, in the last few decades, they've been mired in controversy, and I don't need to repeat some of the things that they've been up to. But the one thing that we need to remember about biblical end times prophecy is the Catholic religious system is there. Islam is not there. So, what I think is going to happen, and this is an opinion, I think elements of it certainly are supported by what we see in the Bible. And I'd be intrigued to hear what anybody says in the comment section here. But I think there's going to be, as part of the end times, there's going to be essentially a second counter-reformation. And I think the Catholic religious system will be reinvigorated by essentially a war on Islam. But that war will extend to everything, including atheism and, a lot of the stuff that we see nowadays. Because you don't see reference to Islam in the Bible. You don't see it strictly in the end times, certainly not by definition. But you do see references to what is clearly the Catholic religious system. So I think that we're heading that way. And I think that what we see in the news is just the tip of the iceberg. I think it will just get worse and worse and worse everywhere. And we're seeing it quite significantly at this time. The other spin-off, the sadder spin-off really, and again, what we've been seeing in the last few decades, is with actual Bible-believing Christianity, because Catholicism is not Christianity. It's just a veneer of Christianity. But we see, as we saw, historically with the Protestant religious system, we do see a form of counter-reformation within Bible-believing Christianity, but it takes this aggressive, strong approach. And, I've seen countless channels here on YouTube that are full of very, very unpleasant, aggressive men and women who push this very aggressive version of Bible-believing Christianity, which we're not called to be aggressive. We're not called to be doormats, absolutely not. But, we see this extreme version, and this is what we see in everything nowadays, these extreme, radical versions of whatever these things are. And I just personally feel that this is irreversible. As I said, I think it's going to get a lot worse. Very bad, I think it's going to get. And then I think that the Catholic religious system is going to essentially reform. It's going to get renewed, and it will be at the forefront, of course, because again, we do see it in the Bible and at the end times. And I think that we're we're getting close. But I can say we're getting close, but that we're getting close could be several decades away still. A lot of people, they're very tempted to say, well, it's going to be like right now, it's going to be in the next 3 or 4 months, or it could be decades away still. But I think what we're starting to see realistically here is a catalyst for why it's going to happen. Because if you look at sort of history, it's just been this slow kind of, rise of Catholicism. And there was a huge dent that was caused by the Protestant Reformation. But that's died. When you go back to the early 1900s, in my opinion, that's when the Protestant Reformation really just stopped. We had the new Bible versions coming in. We had the rise of other religious systems, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons back in the mid-19th century. And it's led to a decline, really, of the Protestant Reformation. But interestingly, over that sort of similar period, the Catholic religious system also began to decline and fade into an element of irrelevance. It's certainly not, say, for example, like the Church of England or the organised Protestant religious organisations. That's what they are, not a faith. But, it feels like it's on the decline as well. But I think we're going to see a sharp reversal, because the thing with Catholicism, it's got that militant angle to it. And they've proved that over history. For hundreds of years, they've proved just how violently aggressive the Catholic religious system actually is. So I think that's what's going to take charge here, and it'll be passed off as a Christian crusade. Frankly, that's the word that just sprung to me now. I think we're going to see a reform of the Crusades. It might not be called as such, but that's what it will be. And it'll be the same thing that we saw 1,000 years ago plus, wave of significant military action. And I think that's going to be part of what's coming. So, that's just my commentary, if you're watching this, on what I'm seeing, because as a Christian, as a Bible-believing Christian, I'm looking at what's happening. I'm not listening to the mainstream news, but I am seeing things, including with my own eyes, even here in the UK. And as I said, I think it's irreversible. I think it's only going to get worse. And then there has to be an explosive event, and we're starting to see some of those, whether it's in France, Spain, even Sweden recently. I think it's going to happen relatively soon in terms of the actual catalyst. As to when we get to where we get with the Catholic, stronger response, don't know. But I think these things are necessary. But it is sad. On the one hand, as a Christian, I am looking forward to leaving, of course. But it is sad to see that we're where we are. You've got or practically no. I can say that with almost total, sincerity. We've got pretty much no Bible-believing Christians, really, in the UK. There are pockets, of course, and many are sort of cooped up in organised systems, but it's a very small amount of people. And then the rest that are in the organised religious systems, whether it's the Church of England or the Methodists or whatever, they're essentially useless. They're not propagating the gospel. They're not really doing anything. They're just simply part of a tradition, and that's just what they do. And they're not going to stop anything from happening. So, but there are a lot of Catholics, including here in the UK, and those guys will be primed, to lead the people forward. Unfortunately, they're on the wrong side. So yeah, look, I'd be interested to hear your comments on kind of what's going on, what's being reported, what you're seeing. For me, it's a natural conclusion of the weakness of the West that something is rising in its place, and it is rising significantly and almost out of control. When you look at the numbers of people that are being migrated into Europe, and they're all young Muslim men. It just says it all, really. So I think it's literally feeding it into this future battleground, frankly, and it's going to be incredibly violent, incredibly unpleasant. It's not going to be a good place to be in. So that certainly makes me sad, especially when you combine that with the weakness of most men, who are afraid to stand up and do what's right, and they're too busy focusing on how good they look, right? And quote, getting in touch with their feelings, and I don't want to make light of mental health or anything like that, but weak men in the West are certainly not helping the situation. So anyway, so just some comments there. I'd be intrigued if any of you have any thoughts on this. This is my opinion based on what I'm seeing, based on scripture, but is this what you see? What do you think about the rise of Islam and, the death of real Christianity? It's very small, very limited, right? And what part the Catholics may play in it. Do you think there's going to be a second, so to speak, counter-reformation against the Islamic faith, and then essentially a new crusade, which will take us to, the battles and the actions that we see ultimately in Revelation? I think so, So, and again, do you think it's going to happen sooner or later? My gut feel is there's certainly going to be something that's going to happen very soon, and it will be significant. But could it be that it still is ongoing by the time all of us are, 30, 40 years older or have passed away? Maybe. I don't know. And it's wrong for me to speculate exactly when it's going to happen because no one knows. Nobody knows. None of us here anyway. So what do you think? Thank you for watching. God bless and Godspeed.